Hey, good afternoon. Are you all kind of woken up after lunch? Usually this is the hardest slot. Like Charles said, decolonizing is a powerful word and elicits reactions, but let me walk you through it. I am a transportation and urban planner. I will be talking about transportation, but this is very applicable, especially when you're looking at systems and saying, how do we change it? All right. If I tell you to imagine a safe, high-quality, modern transportation system, what do you see in your head? Right? It's not hard to do if you're German. You've got great trains. They're a little bit late these days, right? Do you see any of these? Two-wheelers, three-wheelers, auto rickshaws, matatus, brilliantly decorated. Would you call them modern? They serve 70% of all rides across the globe. They employ millions and move billions, and yet they do not exist in policy. And we're trying to work to get that. We call it popular transportation because it comes from the people. Let me jump away from that and tell you the connection between innovation and technology and colonization. Right? In 1845, newspaper editor in the US, John Sullivan, said that he coined the term manifest destiny. The idea was the settlers, the white settlers, were destined by God to take over the whole continent of what eventually became the United States, from sea to shining sea. Right? That inspired a lot of continued politics and political will. This was painted by John Gaston in 1872. It's called American Progress. As you see, there's a woman in a diaphanous gown that somehow stays on her, and that's supposed to be progress. On her, I will call your attention to a couple of things. On her forehead is a star that they call the Star of Empire. She is holding a book called Common School, which is about education. She's also holding a telegraph wire that follows her on, and then there's a train coming behind her. And what's happening to the rest of the picture? The settlers are coming in, and then the indigenous people are running away in fear, and so are the bison. Right? So this idea that progress and superiority comes forward with innovation to chase away what's on the ground, and because they don't matter, that's deeply, deeply linked to colonization. It's also deeply linked when we look at systems that don't work, and we try to bring in, a solution from the outside. Okay, compare that to the wampum belt. This is depicting the 5 nations in the Great Law of Peace of the Iroquois Confederacy that existed before the US did, 200 years before. And it was actually the inspiration for the structure of the US Constitution. Okay, so on to the points. Signs that you are a neo-colonial planner, and that could be transportation, that could be any kind of planning. But mostly this is transportation, but you will see the parallels. First, you have a high mission. Right? It could be modernize and make efficient. We hear those words, right? Or electrify and decarbonize. That is not to say those things aren't important, except that when you consider it a high mission, then you disregard everything else. You think what's already operating on the ground is chaotic, it's ungovernable, it doesn't work. Let's get rid of it. Let's just slash and burn government because it doesn't work. Right? You are ready with a predetermined solution. It's AI. That's what we're going to do, right? In transportation, it's BRT, rail, mass gondolas, or do you remember the Hyperloop and who that came from? Never got off the ground. And then you believe that your prescription is modern, it's advanced, right? Whether that's in systems or transportation. You're convinced of the logic of replacing what's already there because you've got a high mission. People deserve better, right? Which is not to say that's not true, but it makes you disregard what's on the ground. Okay, you believe you are working to improve things to bring more efficient systems to these poor people who suffer from backward and fragmented transportation. So there's kind of this, noblesse obliges, charitable, we're smarter than you, we're trying to help you. And then you don't take time to fully understand the system that is there already, even if it has problems. And then you want to import systems. I used to work as the Chief of Strategy and Innovation in Seattle Department of Transportation, and the IT solutions that would come down were like, oh, it does everything, but it doesn't relate to what is actually happening on the ground, and this is outside transportation, right? You have one-dimensional performance metrics. In transportation, that's travel time saved, and you disregard everything else. So as you look at the innovations that you are trying to put in, what are the dimensions of your performance metrics, right? You think people losing their jobs in businesses are necessary and collateral damage because you need to bring order and efficiency to the system. And you don't think the people who are already working there, whether it's transportation services or not, or a government office, can deliver better and improve their own operations, right? Which is, again, echoed in headlines since January in the US particularly. So how do we then proceed, right? If you can't come down from above and say what happens, right? First, we have to think differently. This is from 2017. It's a publication by BMZ. Sorry if there's someone from BMZ there. And the title of the publication is Reverse Innovation. They took that from Harvard. It's about transportation innovation. But can you hear the hubris in the term? Is there a particular direction innovation is supposed to flow? And so therefore, if it goes from the global south to the global north, it's reverse, right? That the natural order of things is from the global north to the global south. So I'll wrap it up with how do we then proceed? Edward Said said this, right? Rather than this conflict of cultures, of conflict of systems that we like to put on because that creates urgency and gives us the excuse to wipe out everything that's there, we need to borrow from each other and overlap and look at what's working and then learn from each other, right? So that it's all built on understanding and improvement of what's already there. And lastly, my last point, and ahead of my time, this is Dr. Lynn Margulis, who studies plants and the communication between plants, right? Which we're now learning actually happens. Trees have a language. And the point she makes is life did not take over the globe by combat. That whole survival of the fittest was actually misrepresented, right? It's survival of the fittest for an ecosystem, not that you're stronger, right? And she says, life did not take over the globe by combat, but by networking. Another word for networking is making friends, meeting people, connecting.